Hi, I'm Demetria, and I offer podcasting advice, strategies, and support for heart-aligned entrepreneurs who want to share their message with purpose, make an impact, and grow their network. Welcome to the show, and you're listening to Soul Podcasting, episode 27. I'm glad that on this week's podcast, I'm going to be sharing some things with you that I think can help you to overcome nervousness. As podcasters, sometimes realize that we don't always feel like we have what it takes to come on the microphone and deliver our message. And sometimes we have some nerves that we need to taper down so that we can actually do the work that we set out to do. And so I'm going to give you a few tips on today's episode. But first, I just want to share with you that I have officially decided to add on an addition to my podcast services. And I would love for you to know about that so you can spread the word to others as well. And if you are looking for this type of service, I would love to help you. So I'm offering website design services in addition to my podcast consulting. If you're looking for a brand refresh and you need to get started online with your website, then I would love to help you get that built out for you. In addition to anything you need as far as refreshing your brand, optimizing your site for search engines, and positioning you for your authoritative voice online in your niche. One of my specialties, besides website design, is search engine optimization. I don't often talk about it on this show because I like to focus this podcast on the idea of podcasting, how to podcast, how to develop your shows. But one of the very first things that got me started online back in 2004 was designing websites. And that was where I started my clients, with just getting a home base established for their online business. And once they were able to get to that point, and then we started adding content marketing and search engine optimization, eventually we came around to podcasting and blogging and adding on videos and multimedia and things like that. But it all starts with a website. And today there are so many different options for websites dependent upon what your goals are or what you're actually trying to do. So if you're trying to create a shop, you might want to use something like Shopify or WooCommerce, or there's a number of platforms, Squarespace. There's so much out there. My main specialty is WordPress, and I like using front-end editors such as Divi. So if you are looking for someone to design your website for you and get you started and established online, then I hope that you'll consider my services over at demetriazinga.com. And before we also get started with our topic for the day and helping you to get past those pre-show jitters, I just want to plug my Fearless Podcast Launch, which is a free 7-day course. This is absolutely free. I've plugged it before many podcast episodes back, but I want to bring it back to the surface so that you know it's still available for you. And it's called the Fearless Podcast Launch. And the reason I thought this would be fitting for this particular episode is because we're talking about overcoming the fears. So in this very short mini course, I help you to get ready to step out of your comfort zone. And within 1 week, you're going to begin to create a podcast and massively impact your audience. So this mini course includes a workbook, 7 days of emails, and a free 15-minute consult to help you with your launch. So if this is something you're interested in, go ahead and take a look at today's show notes. The link is there for you. You'll see this link available and instructions on how to sign up for the course. So let's get into the topic of the day. And the first thing I want to share with you in terms of getting past pre-show jitters is to own your space. This is your show. I just want you to remember, any show you create, it's absolutely, completely, 100% your show. Now, you're creating the show in order to help other people. You're creating the show in order to be of service to others, but it's your show. So you can do whatever in the world you want to do with it. So just remember, before you hit the record button, to take a moment to own the space that you're in. It's completely yours to do whatever you wish, however you wish to do it. With that level of freedom comes a level of responsibility, and it can feel a little weighty if you really think about the responsibility that you have, because you are serving at first a few, and then maybe 20, 30, 40, and then up to hundreds and thousands, and then tens of thousands of listeners who are being touched by your words, who are listening and feeling just encouraged and supported by you. That is a high calling, and it is a responsibility that you do have to think about as you move throughout your space in podcasting. But it's your podcast. So you get to lead the way, guide the way, and show up the way that's best for you as you consider your audience. Now, that said, let's talk about our physical space. So whether it's a corner of your bedroom or maybe you have a really swanky home studio set up, make it yours. Make it all yours. There are a couple of things I'd like to add into my studio right now that with time I think I will do. I was thinking of having some lighting and something that says on air and some neon lighting in back of me when I'm recording, but I don't have anything like that set up. So I just think that's really cute. I've seen other people do it. I like it. I like the idea of it, but I don't have that. I have what I have and I like my setup so far. I have plants, calendar, I have things going on around me that make me feel like I'm in my space when I record. So decorate your space in a way that inspires you and makes you feel powerful. And when you feel at home, you're going to bring that confidence to the microphone. So this is helping you again with pre-show jitters because you want to feel comfortable in your space as you're recording. You don't want to feel like you are in a space that doesn't fit you or suit you. You have to be comfortable in order to not be nervous when you come to the microphone. The next thing I'd like you to do is to prep like a pro. You're going to prepare for your show. Prepare for your show. This is going to, believe it or not, give you so much more confidence had you not prepared. If you just show up on the microphone and start talking, maybe you have a couple of key points, but you're not really prepared to share what you want to. It's going to show up in the podcast and it will show that you're not prepared. It will show that you're rambling and people will get the sense that you don't have a point to what you're saying. And after a while, they may not tune in as often. So preparation is your secret weapon. Research your topic, jot down your key points, and have sort of a rough outline of what you want to say. You may not stick with that outline per se, but you'll at least know what you'd like to say. In this episode, I've created a couple of different key points that I want to talk about. And although this is not a word for word script, I do know what I want to say for each of the key points. So I already have an idea of what I want to say. So I have my outline and I have my key points, and I'm just sort of filling in those key points now as I'm on the microphone. But that's because I feel comfortable with the topic. Now, if you don't feel as comfortable, you could script your show, and that is perfectly fine. I have scripted shows in the past, and that's been very helpful to me. So whatever helps you to get confident and comfortable, then do so. When you research, the more you know about your topic, if you're interviewing someone, of course, you need to do your research there, then the more confident you'll feel within your interview. It's like walking into an exam and then knowing that you aced the material because you were so prepared for that exam. So just remember, that's what podcasting is like. If you're prepared ahead of time, you won't have any doubt whatsoever that you're going to do well. And also, it goes back to my first point. You're in your space that you own. So there is no fail button for anyone to push. There is nothing for you to be worried about that is not going to go well. As long as you're prepared and you feel like you have complete ownership of your podcast, you can take this whatever way you want, but preparation is key. So you're going to rock your show. Don't worry about not being perfect. And we're going to get to that soon as well. In my last episode, I talked about connecting with your audience. Now, that's super important because when you connect with the people who are listening to you, they want to hear from you again and again and again. And they will binge listen to your shows. I've had a lot of people tell me that they've listened to my shows in bulk. And so that made me feel so, I don't have the right word for this. Humbled in one sense, but also celebrated in another sense, because it made me feel that whatever I'm bringing to the table on this show or any other show that I produce, that it's a work that's worthy, that people are listening. People are taking time out of their schedules to listen or to watch a YouTube video that I published. And it makes me realize that my work is valuable in the world. And so for you, I'm encouraging you to make that connection. Remember, you're talking to other people out there who really want to hear from you. And so all you have to do, in the spirit of comfort and being in your comfort zone, is to picture them sitting right across from you or next to you, and they're vibing with every word that you say. So speak to them like you would your bestie. Right? And provided that that's the type of show that you're producing, but you just want to get in that zone where you feel very comfortable as if you're talking to a friend. And when you connect with your audience on that personal level, it's like having a virtual chat. You might be on Zoom, you might be talking with a friend on FaceTime or something. That's the kind of collaboration that you want to feel like you're having with your audience, even though they're not in front of you For example, you guys, you're not in front of me right now. I can't see your faces, your expressions. I don't know what you're saying, what you're feeling about what I'm saying. So I have to use my imagination and kick that into high gear in order to really connect with you. And so in my imagination, I feel that you are on the other side of my podcast, this virtual podcast that we've got set up here. And you're listening to me either on your phone or through your AirPods or your headset. You're listening to me, you're listening on your phone, you're listening on your computer, on your tablet. You might even be driving down the road and listening in your car. So however you are choosing to listen to this show, I know that you're listening to me, and I'm happy that you are listening to me. I wish I could put a face to who's listening to me, but I know kind of the general demographics of the people that I'm talking to right now. And so because I know you in that sense, even though I don't know you individually, I feel like I'm talking to people I know. A lot of the time, the things that helps a lot with interactions and engagement is when your listeners or your audience, when you produce your podcast, decides to give you feedback and to write you an email and say, hey, I enjoyed episode number whatever, and I'm glad that you produced that one because it helped me in my whatever they're trying to get help with. And when I've received those kinds of comments, it's helped me so much in continuing the work that I'm doing. Honestly, as podcasters, we hear crickets a lot of the time. More than we hear feedback, we hear nothing. So it's important when you do get the feedback that you take it seriously and that you celebrate that feedback. It means a lot. In fact, I like to capture my feedback and put it in a testimonial form and add it to my Instagram because it helps to remind me, in addition to showing that the work I'm doing is valuable, it helps to remind me that I am receiving support from my audience in that way. You may not be making your 4, 5, or 6 figures in podcasting. You may not be making enough through your ads or through sponsorships or through your course memberships or selling your products and services. Maybe that's not generating as much as you would like through the vehicle of your podcast right away, because that takes time. It takes time to build your podcast to the point where you are starting to see your income increase as a result of your services and products that you're offering, or as a result of your ads and your sponsorship. But one thing that you could definitely feel motivated to keep going, one way to do that is to ask for feedback, ask for engagement, ask for interactions, ask your audience to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Get that engagement so that you know that what you're doing is validated. And that's going to help you keep going until the point at which you're able to see other ways that your podcast is successful. So make sure to have a connection with your audience in some way. And this is going to help you to not feel so nervous about podcasting. Now, if you're feeling nervous, lots of times it's because, in my experience, it's because we're trying so hard to be perfect. And I want you, again, as I reiterate in the last couple of episodes, I want you to embrace your imperfections and to come to the microphone knowing that you're not perfect, and neither is your setup or maybe even the background noise that might be happening. Maybe there's some things happening in your podcasting endeavors that keeps you from feeling like you have your stuff together. You don't have to be a super polished podcaster either. Maybe you like polished, maybe you don't. And so you do what's comfortable for you. If you just want to have a chat with a friend and you guys are sharing one microphone, even though I recommend you each have your own, but if you're wanting to just show up and surround yourself with your friends and you're all talking and taking turns answering questions in a roundtable format and you're just showing up and you're doing the work and you're recording it, if that is your product to share with the world and it makes a difference with your listeners and your product is loved, people enjoyed the show, who cares if it wasn't well produced? As long as it was listenable, as long as you could hear the audio well, and there wasn't a lot of background noise, and that for the most part, you tried to make it as professional as possible, where it was easily heard and distinguished, every voice distinguished, no one talking over each other, and there was no static, and the audio volumes were just right so that your listener could easily listen to the show without any trouble at all. It doesn't matter if you had intros and outros. It doesn't matter if you had special effects or anything like that. You just show up and you do the work and you have the conversations and you share it with the world. Okay. So we don't care about a little background noise. I know that one of my favorite podcasters recently recorded his show outside. His name is Leslie Samuel. He is an online marketer that I've been following for many years, and he started a blog years ago called Become a Blogger, and it is now IamLeslieSamuel.com. So his show is Learning with Leslie, and I love listening to him because he likes to try different things at different seasons of his life, and he doesn't stay shoved into one specific thing. He is doing a lot of things in a lot of different ways. And if the season changes in his life, then he changes things. And I think having the freedom to do that as an entrepreneur is one of the things that drew me to entrepreneurship. And so watching him change over the last 10 years and revamp his brand and change the way he does things on his podcast. And even at times he'd show up for every week. And then there were times that he didn't show up at all for a really long time and didn't update his podcast. And suddenly he came back and then we were still there waiting to hear from him. So nothing changed. And I love that he's able to move according to the needs of his life and his family. And I just think it's a beautiful way to live. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you may as well not put yourself in a box and demand more of yourself than what is possible, and also enjoy the process and the journey of your podcasts and your products and the content that you're bringing into the world. You can evolve with your product. And so one of the things that he did recently was he recorded an episode outside. I think he's from the islands. He was there to visit. Either he was there or he was in Florida. I'm not sure where, but he was outside and you could hear the background noise of the wind and the birds, but it wasn't distracting. You could still hear him completely well. There was nothing wrong with this background noise. And some people would say, oh, he should have edited that out, and maybe he should have been in a studio so there was no wind, and all the things that we like to teach as, a podcasting support service. But in general, that might be the rule of thumb. But there are times when you're going to take your show on the road and your listeners completely understand. 2 years ago, I came back to podcasting at my homeschool podcast, which I had left for about a year and didn't update it. And then when I came back, my very first episode was on the fly, off the cuff, didn't plan to podcast anything, but I'd brought my laptop with me and I'd gone to Florida for a couple of days. And while I was there, I had an epiphany that I wanted to bring my podcast back. And so I didn't have my microphone and I didn't have things set up properly. I just used my computer audio, which is not that great. And I was outside on the balcony of my hotel room and you could hear the kids swimming in the pool beneath. It was not perfect. It was not a perfect audio setup, but my listeners still heard the show and it received a lot of downloads because it was, of course, my first episode in about a year. And I got a lot of feedback on that show because of the topic and the content that was relevant to telling everyone sort of why I took a break and what the changes were that were going to be made on the show from that day forward. And once again, just showing up and being myself and not really allowing nerves to get the best of me and excuses like everything has to be perfect before I move forward get the best of me. So I want to encourage you that wherever you are in your podcasting, just move forward, just do the work, just record, press record, and don't even worry if you can't edit. If you don't have the time to edit, just record it as is and publish it. Embrace your imperfections because perfect is boring. You don't want to stress about every little or I tend to stress about it. I tend to go back and edit things out just because I still have a little bit of that perfectionism in me that I'm working through right now in my life. So if I feel like I'm overusing the ums and uhs, I'll go back and edit some of them out. But don't stress about it. If you just can't get around to that, everyone understands that people say and it's okay. So embrace those imperfections. They make you real, they make you relatable, and your audience will love you even more for being authentically you. And lastly, I just want to encourage you to take deep, deep breaths and just plug in. If you're feeling those nerves creep in, take a deep breath. Inhale, think about good, positive things. Exhale, get rid of the self-doubt. The deep breaths not only calm your nerves, but also it gives you a moment to center yourself before you sit behind the microphone. And that way you can encourage yourself when no one's there to say, hey, you can do this. You have to tell yourself that you can, especially if you're about to share something with the world that may be personal or may be uncomfortable. Think about what you want to share and why you're sharing it. Always go back to your why. But if you really feel like you have to share these topics, like this is going to help your audience so much, then take a deep breath and start talking. As a Christian, I always say pray. Pray first before everything we do, because again, that's a wonderful way to center ourselves before we do anything. And again, I want to remind you that podcasting, it's a big work. Podcasting is a lofty work. Sometimes we think of podcasting as just something everybody and their grandma is now doing. And that's fine. If it's just for fun or whatever, that's fine. But for many of us who feel like we have a message to share that's very deep and resounds with our audience, it can be a lofty work. It can also be a heavy work. So it depends on your goals. If you're also podcasting to make people happy, to make them laugh, if you're an entertainer, that's a deep work because you're doing something in the souls of the people who are listening to your show. You're making them happy. You're giving them hope. Everything you do as a podcaster or even as a vlogger or a blogger, these different mediums by which we listen to and consume content as consumers is just a way to make our lives better, to feel better in the moment, and to help us make decisions, to help us move forward in our own lives. And that's why we're looking for content to give us hope, to give us inspiration. So as a podcaster, your listeners are coming to you for that kind of support and inspiration. So I want you to feel free to deliver that to them without feeling nervous, without feeling like you have nothing to offer that's of value, because that's not a good way to start your podcasting. You want to get past the nerves, the pre-show jitters, the imposter syndrome, all of that stuff. You need to put it to rest. You need to put it to rest. I'm just sharing that with you as a friend. From friend to friend, I'm just letting you know, I'll be your friend on the show, that you've got to get rid of imposter syndrome. In order to do anything worthwhile, you have to get past yourself and understand that people need you. That's why you're starting the show, because your work is needed to be heard. So please do what you feel like you're supposed to do. And with that said, again, I'm offering my support at impactpodcastcoach.com. If you need any support with your podcasting, some coaching, some helps, I'm here for you. I'll leave a link in the show notes so that you can contact me if you need to just sit down with someone and talk about your show and how to make it better. If you need a podcast audit, I'm here to help you figure out what's going on in your show and how we can make your show so much better. So I'll leave a link to my audit services, which provides for you information on how to evaluate your website positioning. I'll analyze your show discoverability. We'll look at the presence of your podcast, your website, your podcast title, show notes, your setup. If applicable, we can look at your equipment setup. We'll also look at your audio quality, your artwork, and determine what your success metrics are, what they should be, depending on your own goals. And we'll see if your audience engagement is going okay for you. We'll look at your strategy checks. We'll do all of these things and so much more, looking at intros, outros, bumpers, all of this. I provide a PDF checklist with personalized action steps within 7 days. And then I also offer a content creation roadmap for generating that traffic to your show. We'll have a follow-up Zoom call. It's about 45 minutes. Even that is worth a $250 value. And I'm offering all of this within an audit, and you'll see the pricing, but it is less than $250. And so you'll see all of this and the pricing provided for you in the show notes. I'd love to have you if you're interested. So come check out my link in the notes for today. Lastly, I just want to say I'm glad that you're listening to Soul Podcasting. I can't wait to come back next time and share more with you to get you started on your journey. So until then, happy podcasting.